What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're looking at the new direct links for Twinmotion, specifically from Revit, but this might apply to other programs that you might use, but we're going to look at specifically Revit. And this came to us within Twinmotion 2021.1 new features, and this is involving a direct link from Revit as well as the Datasmith direct link from Revit. So this is cool. If you're not familiar with it, I'll cover that in just a second. But if you happen to learn something, like any point in this video, please demolish that like button. It helps me out a lot. It also tells me that you might have learned something. That really does help. Okay, so we're familiar with the direct link from Revit, and that's what this is. We can see it here. It supports all these different years of Revit. And it not only does it do that, but this is specifically for Twinmotion 2021.1.2 and 2021.1, the new version, which is cool. So you don't need to necessarily re-download this. You just need to make sure you uninstall Twinmotion 2020 if you have 2020.1, because I've run into problems where when I would click see in Twinmotion from Revit, it would send it to 2020, which is not what I want. I want it to send it to Twinmotion 2021. So make sure you uninstall previous versions of Twinmotion within the Epic Games launcher first, because that'll tell you, of course, you'll know that if it's not working, and send it to the right version. But then besides all of that, what was covered in the last video that I did, which was the new features for Twinmotion 2021, was this Datasmith direct link for Revit. So you might look at these two and just realize these are the exact same except the word Datasmith, and you're right. But there's a lot more to it than that. And so I'll link this page in the description, but what this is it's a separate importer, which obviously we can see it is. But this Datasmith, what Datasmith is, it's used with many different programs, and particularly it's used with Unreal and Twinmotion, but because that's what we care about. But it's basically taking the geometry as well as the BIM data along with it, and it's bringing it into Twinmotion. And so what the idea here is with Twinmotion and this update, and that we have this importer, is that this importer will allow you to bring in multiple models from multiple different programs. So maybe you've come down here and you realize, well, I do my modeling in Grasshopper and in Rhino. Well, in the future, there should be a Datasmith direct link that's coming from Rhino or Grasshopper, and you can just use that from that program and link it directly into one single Twinmotion project. So maybe I have a project that in Revit, and then I say, see in Twinmotion, I send it to Twinmotion, cool. But then later on, I realize, oh, I need to redesign this canopy, and I want to do it with Grasshopper or in Rhino. And so I model it in Rhino, yada, yada, looks good. But then I end up downloading the Datasmith direct link that ends up being for Rhino, and I can send that directly from Rhino into my Twinmotion file that I've set up through Revit. So really, the whole idea here is that we have one Twinmotion file that never changes, but then we can use this new Datasmith direct link to direct link from other programs into Twinmotion. That's awesome. That is game-changing. But what's also game-changing, and honestly, to a degree of what I'm more excited about, is that this right here, Datasmith, of course, it's used by Twinmotion and Unreal, but it's allowing us to synchronize as many Revit files as you wish within the same Twinmotion project. And so what is that telling us? Well, if we look at this further, that's saying, well, maybe I have that canopy I'm designing in Revit, and I have 5 options of it or something. In the past, if you click see in Twinmotion from each one of the options, it would simply override the option that you have within Twinmotion. It's just you have a single instance of an import from Revit, unless you're doing literally export in FBX, which is just kind of silly, and it would be unfortunate to have to keep doing that. And so this is allowing us to not have to do that. Okay, so I've said all that. What does that mean for Revit? Well, that means if we have 5 different canopy options, we can use the Datasmith direct link from Revit to direct link all 5 of those different canopies into Twinmotion at the same time without overriding everything else in Twinmotion. So we literally have 5 different options of that particular canopy, for example, in Twinmotion, living in again, that one Twinmotion project at the same time. And that's awesome. That's perfect because that's going to allow us to integrate any of those models with whether it's scene states or phasing, whatever, to see different options in real time in the presenter in just in Twinmotion itself in one project. So cool. So we're going to go through this process. I'm not going to like go show you all the different options, whatever yet, but what I am going to show you is how to set up this direct link. So I'm going to do it. I'm doing it for the first time, and we're going to see if it's pretty easy. So my guess is it is. So I'm going to click download now, and we're going to get everything that we might expect here. We're going to download it and just run this. And really, once this is installed, we should see another button to press on the Twinmotion ribbon in Revit. Simply click next here. Yep, we agree to that. Always. Do we want to choose which versions? Sure, I'll use both those versions for now. Cool. Yes, absolutely. We can see this is copying in. Yes. And then again, because it's an add-in, we're going to get that pop-up. Basically, do we want to load this whenever Revit is open? Well, I always choose always load because I don't want to deal with this every single time. And it's doing it for each version and yada, yada. Okay, cool. So there we go. Let's go to Revit and let's see if anything has updated. Well, not only is there a Twinmotion 2020 and direct link that we're used to seeing that comes with that, we actually have a full Datasmith, a full Datasmith ribbon, which, I have mixed feelings about another ribbon, another toolbar, whatever, but it's okay. So here we go. So this is what we got here. We've got export 3D view, which is perfectly fine. Export an active 3D view to Unreal. And then we've got the direct link. And as we got the connections and we've got synchronize. So let's click on connections here. So we've got no connections found. So I've restarted Twinmotion and I've even started Revit. And I don't know if that was necessary at all, but of course I still get this connection, which is kind of weird. Now, what I did discover is that whenever we do come back to Twinmotion, we could see that I just restarted it and I have a blank scene. But the import actually says, click here to import file or create Datasmith direct link. That might be exactly what we need. So import, and look at that. Geometry, import direct link. There is my Revit house, like just the sample house. And I can choose to collapse that by, material, collapse all, or keep hierarchy. I absolutely want to always keep the hierarchy. And I'll click OK. And here we go. Look, our direct link is being processed. Seems pretty simple. So, okay, so I literally brought this model in, and it's just like as if I had pressed C in Twinmotion, and it shows up here as an import. So that's really interesting. So let's look at what we can do. We have the direct link settings. We've got the reset transform. We've got reimport, deleted out. We can. There's a lot of options here. Reset materials, cool. Direct link settings, and this is the same settings. So this almost tells me that I could change the collapse by material or keep the hierarchy. So I'm going to click collapse by material and see what happens. My guess is this is actually changing it, this is also game changing because then I can look. So these are all the same material. This is obviously not one object. So that was changed. If I expand the menu here, I could even see this is literally by material. These are just horrible materials on my part, but nonetheless. So I can come back here again and decide, I don't like that because I never did, and I can keep the hierarchy, and I can keep everything as it was. And my guess is now all of these objects will be their own individual object. Look at this. That's so cool. That is fantastic. That is really cool. I mean, that's kind of the way you'd want it to be. And so look at this. So let's say I, at this point decide, I like this. Let's go back to Revit and see what we can do using this Datasmith further. So here we go. We've got the synchronize. So let's go ahead and just do something like raising the roof, like bringing the roof off the ground, maybe 10 more feet or something like that. So we're going to raise the roof up, which is kind of funny because everything's going to drag with it. And so let's just see what happens when I click synchronize. So appears to be nothing from Revit. Let's go back to Twinmotion. Oh, look at that. Instantly. There was no video cut, just instantly. And so that is awesome stuff. Now, what I want to do is try bringing in, of course, I want to go back to Revit and undo this because I don't really want that. So I'm going to click synchronize and immediately come back here and we'll see, bam. That's awesome. Almost immediately. But what I want to do is see if we can bring in like another instance of it or something. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep the hierarchy. So we're going to have two. And I'll click OK, and we have 2. Now I don't know what's going to happen now. This is live TV. We're trying this out for the first time. Um, so there's no renaming. It's all the same. And so my guess is if I come back to Revit and I just do the same thing I did, raising the roof up a bit, my guess is that whenever I synchronize, that I will then not necessarily. Okay. So if I click on connections, I can see that I have my 2 connections. Unfortunately, there's not really anything I can do. I can just see that there's 2 connections, which that's fine. It's nice that there's 2. But my guess is when I click synchronize that I will end up seeing both. Now, I wonder if I come all the way top and if I literally have 2. So look at this. This is the cool part. This is really what matters here, is that I have 2 pieces and I have 2 full models here. Now, it doesn't help that I end up having literally 2 separate models of the same thing. That doesn't quite help. But the point here is that, look, 1 model, 2 model, and they're both on the top of each other. Now, let's go ahead and, obviously, I've set this up so horribly that I can't necessarily move it all, but I'm going to zoom out all the way, and I want to zoom in at this point. Now, something I didn't cover in the new features is that when it comes to the speed, there are now 4 different levels of speed. So default is 2. There was 3 before, which is kind of ridiculous, but now I can literally be a plane and just fly the hell in, which is great. Obviously, I don't want to keep it on plane, which is silly, but I can move quicker. Anyways, so now let's go ahead and I'm going to just move this whole thing just so we can clearly see it. I'm going to move this. So I literally have 2. And so this is pure experiments, just like, I want to point that out here. I don't know what's going to happen, which is kind of the point here. So I've got, building 1, building 2, and now I want to come back to Revit, and clearly I can see I have jacked with the roof a lot. Now I want to hit synchronize, and my guess is it's going to synchronize both, but given that I moved the other one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get both of those roofs raised. So let's go ahead and synchronize, come back here, and look at that. So both of them raised. That's what I expected. Okay, so now the thing here is, it's almost a question of how do we deal with this moving forward? Because, obviously this is great. I can have multiple instances of the same thing, but it's a matter of organizing. So let's go ahead and maybe I decide, well, maybe I just want the walls. I don't know. For some reason, I just want walls. So let's go ahead and make sure that only the walls are shown. Hello. Only the walls are shown. And we can do that by just literally only showing walls. So here we go. So just the walls. Cool. There's not even curtain walls, just walls. So now let's see what, of course, if I at this point, if I click synchronize, I'm going to obviously only see walls. It's going to synchronize it, but I don't want to do that. I want to literally bring in just the walls. So what I'm thinking is I can literally import another version. And so at this point, I'll go to my direct link, keep hierarchy. Now, my fear is that this is just going to bring in the model because I'm not specifying a particular view, if that makes sense. Like it's going to bring in the model. And because I've just decided to hide everything in this view, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to bring just what I see in this view. So I think we're going to have to look to this export 3D view. I think so. But we're going ahead and try it. We're going to see what happens. So, okay, we're going to get this. My guess is we're going to get another whole building here, which is okay. But we'll see. So coming up here, I see there is my building. So if I hide this, yeah, I get a whole other building. And so let's go ahead and move this off as like third one. So there's again, the same 3. So it literally, what I did ignored, the import ignored what I did here in this view because it's just in this view. So now I'll just go ahead and delete this one because we don't necessarily need that one. And oddly enough, you'll see I have the model still, but I don't have the link, which is kind of funny. So I can just delete all of this too. Not a big deal. So let's go ahead and export 3D view. So now my guess here is that what we're going to get is the fact that we have to, I'm going to call this, walls, just so it's different. Call it walls, and I'll click save, and we're going to see what happens because my guess is at this point, we're going to have to bring this in like we would literally like export an FBX, now, which is unfortunate, but let's go ahead and do this. So this is not going to be a direct link, so it's going to be considered geometry. And so, see, I don't like this already, but I'm curious if we have the option of even bringing it in. So like, I don't see, there's Datasmith. Okay, we have Datasmith. All right, that's one step better. Like we're getting there. So now, if I actually can find the file, which is sometimes difficult, here it is, walls, Datasmith. So I can bring this in. Of course, we have the same options as far as I'm concerned. Yep, keep hierarchy, click OK. And so, again, whatever. This ends up being the same sort of import as an FBX, except it's a Datasmith file, which, I mean, I like that better than an FBX because of what a Datasmith is, which is nice. So let's go ahead and move this off. We can see there are my walls. Okay. Now, this is the interesting thing. Let's say, so the problem is, I think because we exported it, I'd have to, like if I decided to, reset this, or if I wanted to add more or something, then I can just click undo here and everything comes back. So if at this point I clicked sync, obviously we know that everything will sync up, but I guess the main thing is if we look at the connections. So yeah, so this is something to be aware of. So the connections are very important. And so you want to keep monitoring these because these are literally the physical connections you have to Twinmotion. In this case, it shows Twinmotion. I could have Unreal Engine, obviously, but with this being my actual connection, then that means if I click synchronize, it's going to update these connections only. And so what I was getting at is if I were to synchronize, if this new model I brought in would be affected at all, this one, which is the walls. And this is telling me, synchronize is telling me that it would not because it's not a part of the connections. And so you can see that these are linked together under the direct link. And then obviously this one is a file export, which kind of is too bad. So the way around this, well, at first let's synchronize this up and see what happens. Yep, the roofs just go down and this is completely unaffected. So we're learning together, which is fun and exciting and also not. But what are we learning here? Well, we're learning that the direct link requires these connections, and you want to see these, and you want to know that things are connected. And my guess is if I were to delete one of these connections, that it would also no longer show up in the connections here in Revit. That's for sure. But also that this file export is almost I would basically say it's the exact same as this export, which is kind of too bad. But the thing to be aware of is that this is just an FBX. It is what it is. It's an FBX. It's not a Datasmith file. So I do like the fact that we can go and export the Datasmith file there from a 3D view, but it's acting the same way in that it's not directly linked. Now, the way around this, unfortunately, it seems as though, so, okay, here's another example. If I hide this and I synchronize, does it go away? It does. Interesting. So, okay, this is better than I thought. This is better than I thought in that it's taking the visibility of this current 3D view, which is great. I was worried that it was taking the entire 3D model regardless of the visibility of one particular view, because if that were the case, then I could have things hidden here, things hidden there, things not shown, and it would just take everything all the time. So that's great. So this is great. This is great, and I wish I would have discovered that before I moved to the export 3D view. But anyways, obviously this export 3D view is just like the FBX. So treat it like that. It's not going to have a direct connection. Treat it like that too, because it's different. So we want to focus here on the connections and the direct link. So this is what I want to do. I want to say, well, maybe one connection will be the site. Okay, maybe one connection will be the site. Now I'm going to import one, which is literally going to be the site. And so whenever I do this, of course, keep the hierarchy, click OK, and this will come in, and it should come in with what's seen in this view because I'm linking it from this view. So what happened here? If I hide all this, I can see that everything, the only thing that came in was the site, and I actually had to synchronize it up. So like I said, I synchronized it. So I'm wondering if when I unhide these, of course, the walls is the walls. It will always be the walls. It will not be changed. But let's go back to Revit and see this connection. So there's my third connection. Cool. So my fear is that whenever I unhide these, we won't see the building. Yeah, that was what I was thinking. So it's possible that it's per view. So let's now move into per view. So let's organize this a bit better for us. I'm going to end up deleting all of these, and we're going to delete these 3 connections. And my guess is that the connections here will no longer show up. Perfect. I'm going to unhide the build. Actually, I'm not going to unhide the building. So we're going to have a site, and I'm going to make sure that this view is called 3D site. 3D view, 3D site. So with 3D site, cool, I'm going to basically create this connection. So, hide the walls because who cares? I will import direct link, keep the hierarchy, click OK. Cool. So this is the site. Great. We know this is the site. I wish there were a way of renaming this. I mean, it tells you it comes from Revit and there's the file name. Okay. But I wish, I can always reset the transform, re-import, deleted, whatever. I don't need to do that. But for myself, I'll rename this. How about this? So I'll call this site. So there's a site. And so at this point, let's just duplicate this view with detailing. And then I will now show the building. And then we'll hide the site, literally invert everything. Easy enough. So with this, we can see we just have the building. So there's just my building. And so I'm going to rename this to be 3D-building because that seems to make the most sense. 3D-building. And if we look at our connections, there's our 1 connection. Okay. Now I don't want to synchronize until I create this import, which is going to keep the hierarchy of that. So whenever I bring this in, my guess, so there's the site. So it's just bringing in the site. So I'm going to just go ahead and sync it now. So this might leave us high and dry. And if it leaves us high and dry, that means we're going to have essentially the site and the building. Once I synchronize, everything be synchronized to just the building, like just this view. So I'll go ahead and click synchronize. And because a lot happened, I guess things updated. So here's processing the link. And so we have a building, which we expected. So this is what I feared. We just have the building. So this is getting interesting because this is telling me that as soon as I synchronize anything, I get everything's like updated to what I see in this view or the view I'm in, which we don't necessarily want. Now, what if I come to this first one, which was the site, and I choose re-import deleted objects? Let's see what happens. Well, nothing. Because obviously they weren't deleted, it was just synced up. Reset transform, nothing, no. So, okay, again, this is not the end of the world. It's just a matter of how to manage it. And I can't necessarily say right now that I'm confident in how to manage this. So it's not per view because we just learned that, because I can go to my site and then my building. And it really is, it has to do with the view I'm in, but I'm syncing all of them. So it's kind of confusing in that each one of these is going to be updated at the same time to be like, so I'm kind of questioning, like, I understand you can have multiple imports. So if I just bring another import in, it's going to import the site, I think. We'll see. Now, I mean, that's curious. It might be that you don't want to end up updating, which seems to be kind of pointless. So if I bring this in, does it bring a site in? No, it didn't. So it didn't, because I hadn't synced yet. So I literally have 3 buildings on top of each other, which is what I expected. So 3 buildings, even though I'm looking at the site. So it has nothing to do with the view. It has everything to do, it has everything to do with the view you're in when you sync. So if I sync the site, everything will be changed to the site, which I don't want either necessarily. So the question becomes, how do I end up syncing changes from Revit without overriding every single one? Because like, if we're looking at doing design options, we can understand how, if we have, options, 3 different options for a particular wall, I can obviously show the new wall instead of the other two walls, in the one option instead of the other two. I can synchronize, but whenever I synchronize, I apparently am going to get every new, like, it's all going to show up in each one of these three, which is kind of confusing. So, um, again, we are learning together, and this is a slow, difficult process sometimes, which it seems to be right now. Now, of course, the way around this always is to export 3D view, and I can always take this 3D view of the site, and of course, I must be in a 3D view to export. Well, that's silly. I'm in a 3D view. I'm not sure what the problem with this is. It must be that there's not a building showing, because I guess it will work here. Really interesting. Another interesting aspect. I'm curious if something like this will be updated. So what I'd like to see is if I had all of these, like if another option in here was to, rename these, that'd be one. But in particular, if I had these connections and I decided maybe when I click synchronize, I could choose which one to update, that would be perfect. Now I don't have that option because it's just synchronizing the connections. And I don't necessarily, obviously, so I guess what's happening here is I could always just remove this connection, but I still have the model. That's somewhat helpful, because the way around it is, you can see I don't have the connection. What I could do technically is, let's say I have my three options or something. I have one option that is the building this way. I have one option with the building with the roof up 10 feet and another one with the roof off. I can say, well, this is going to be my first option, so I'll just synchronize this and make things easy. And I can go ahead and delete this second one because I don't care about that right now. So there's my building, and there's my building as it is. And if I delete these two also, we have just this one with the building. That's fine. And if I come into another one and I decide, well, I don't want the building there, I can then choose to turn off the roof, because this is another option. What I can do is I can delete this link, I think, and then I can keep, I can keep this. And so I have my building as it was. I can hide this, but then now I can import what we just did, which is with the roof off. And my guess is this should work after I sync it. Hold on, let me synchronize it. So there we go. We sync, the roof is off. So here, so this first option should be roof on, roof off. And so this is working only because I've removed the link. And so maybe the third option again is the roof is back on, but now it's raised 10 feet or something. I don't know. Something like that. Put that at 10 feet. And so this is great. And so again, I want to keep this, of course, but I want to remove this, this kind of sucks. Like, I'm probably doing something wrong. So please, if you discovered something better or a better way to do this, then let me know in the comment section below, because I really want to know. Of course, I need to then synchronize this once more, and I can see my roof is raised. So now what I have here is the first option, which is the roof on normally. I have the second option with the roof off, and then I have the third option with the roof up. The problem here is that I've lost my connection for these first two. And so maybe I decide, well, yeah, the roof's off, but I don't want a roof that's off. I just want it to be a different roof. Well, I can't update this. I can't synchronize it. I can't do anything. It's just kind of standalone right now. It's just stuck in my Twinmotion model. So this is where, this perhaps is where the export 3D file comes into play for Datasmith. But that gets into like, oh, it was the same as what we had here in the export. We could always export the other design options and have it work that way. So I am curious how that's different. Now, I understand that we can clearly have multiple connections. Obviously, we're very clear about that. But what is the advantage? Because maybe things aren't working the way that they are supposed to, or I'm just missing something, because the connections, while they are there and while they show up whenever I synchronize, I end up synchronizing all of them. So I want to find a way to isolate each of these or select each connection to update. So I'm curious on that, because it is a bit confusing to me as to how this is supposed to operate, because I think I understand the idea. So like I said, if you if you've figured this out and you're smarter than me, which I'm sure a lot of you are, then let me know in the comment section below what I'm missing, because I want to be able to have all of these something that I can update or continue to sync to from Revit, because that's important. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this, I thought. And so if I do that, that's great. Now, I mean, maybe we could use the C in Twinmotion as well. And this is going to, existing project. Uh, it's wanting to me to pull from. So it's a different import is all it is. So that's just something to be aware of. I do like the idea of using the Datasmith because of how it does sync. It seems to be nicer, quicker, more effective. I see the potential. Either I'm missing something, or or it's just not quite there yet. So I'm curious. Unfortunately, we're going to end it right here. Once I figured it out, I'll make another video, and I want to make one specifically on design options, because clearly it's possible. I know it is. It's just either I'm missing something or it's not there yet. So look for that video in the future, because it will be coming as soon as I figure things out. So if you did happen to learn something, which I hope you did, we looked at this completely new Datasmith importer for Twinmotion. Really cool stuff. We could look at it in the future again, probably will, from other perspectives, other programs, directly linking into this same project. So we'll look at that later on in the future. But again, if you liked it, happen to learn something, please demolish that like button. It helps me out so much. And really hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.